Guys, welcome to Knowledge Fund YouTube channel. In this video, I would like to share all .NET commonly used interview questions and answers. So let me start with the very first question. What is the .NET standard? So the .NET standard is a set of specifications that are intended to be available on all .NET implementations. The actual motivation behind the .NET standard is establishing a greater uniformity in the .NET ecosystem. The main advantages are it defines the uniformity in all .NET implementation. It uses for developers to produce portable libraries that are usable across the .NET implementations. It reduces or even eliminates conditional compilation on shared source code, and it also solves the code sharing problem for .NET developers by bringing all the APIs that we expect and even love across the environment that we needed to develop for different applications like desktop applications, mobile applications, web applications, or even for cloud ready applications. If you see the pictorially, so what exactly the .NET standard? So the .NET standard, which is common for all three supported frameworks like .NET Framework, .NET Core, and XAMARIN. If you would like to develop any application and you have to choose the right standard version so that and I have to check whether that version is what supporting for whether it is .NET Framework or .NET Core or Xamarin. So what is the .NET Core? So .NET Core is the lightweight development model that allow us to create applications that support and run on multiple platforms like Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. So what is Xamarin? Xamarin is a framework to develop a cross-platform mobile applications. It is a single language, C# and runtime that works on three mobile platforms like Android, iOS, and Windows. And if you develop, so we'll get same look and feel as native. So what exactly the .NET framework? So the .NET framework is designed and developed by Microsoft Corporation. It is a software design and development framework, and it is used to build the applications for desktop and mobile and even for web application and cloud ready application. It consists of different layers like common language runtime and base class library, and it gives different supported application types. So what are the main advantages? So the memory management, it supports for memory management, like it responsible for allocating and deallocating the memory, and it supports common type system. It has a rich extensive base class library. It supports different platforms for developing different kind of applications. Like if you're targeting for web application, there is ASP.NET, a built-in framework. And if you want to use any SOA based applications like service oriented application, we have WCF and even web API. And if you would like to for any desktop application, we have WPF is the platform. And another feature like language interoperability, and it also support version compatibility. It also supports side-by-side execution. That means it resolves the version conflicts by allowing multiple versions of common language runtime exist on the same computer. So as we discussed about the .NET standards, it is the main advantages in the for creating different class libraries that works on multiple .NET frameworks. So what are the different layers? If you see here, the bottom is common language runtime, the next is base class library, and the remaining is supported applications. So what exactly the CLR? The .NET framework provides a runtime environment called a CLR, which runs the code and provides the services that make us development process very easy. So what are the different services providing by the CLR? It provides code management, memory management, security management, verification of type safety, interoperability, compilation of MSIL code into native code, and managing the exceptions and errors. And it also supports for features for developers like profiling and debugging as well. So what is the CLR execution process? So if you write any code using any .NET supported languages, when we compile, it compiles the MSIL code by using the language supported compiler. Then the code goes to CLR. CLR will compile this MSIL code to native code with the help of jitters. So what is a CTS? The common type system is a rich type system that supports the types and operations which are common in most programming languages. The common type systems are class, structure, interface, delegate, and enumeration. What is a CLS? The common language specification is a set of rules or specifications which all .NET supported language has to follow to be part of the .NET framework. It is a subset of common type system. What is a BCL? The base class library is set of classes, interfaces, and value types that provide access to the system functionality. It is a foundation on which .NET Framework applications or components and controls we can develop. What is the MSIL? The MSIL is a Microsoft Intermediate Language. So when we compile any .NET program, the source code first it converts to MSIL code by using the language compiler, and it is a CPU independent instruction and which the .NET framework programs are compiled, and it contains the instructions for loading, storing, initializing, and calling methods on objects. So what is the JIT? Just in time compilers will compile the MSIL code to native executable code, either exe or DLL, for the specific mission and operating system. As JIT are aware of processor and OS exactly at runtime, so it can optimize the code extremely efficiently, resulting in very robust applications. So different types of jitters, like we have pre-JIT, ECONO and normal JIT. And pre-JIT, it compiles the complete source code into native code in a single compilation cycle. So this is done at the time of deployment of the application. In ECONO JIT, it compiles only those functions that are called at runtime. However, these compiled functions are removed when they are not required. Normal JIT. So it compiles only those functions that are called at runtime and they are stored in the cache. If the same function is called next time, the CLR uses the same copy of compiled code without recompiling. So what is the difference between the managed code and unmanaged code? The managed code is executed by CLR instead of operating system, and unmanaged code is the code that is executed directly by the operating system outside the CLR environment. So in memory management, if you see, so we have different types of memories in .NET, like we have stack memory and heap memory. What exactly the stack memory? The stack is responsible for keeping track of running memory needed to our applications. And heap is used to keep track of all the reference type information. And heap also used for dynamic memory allocation. So what is the difference between the value type and reference type? Value types are types which stores in the stack memory, and we have different value types like int, float, double, and so on. And the reference types are like a pointers which points to the memory location and it stores in the heap memory. So reference types, like we have strings and objects. So what exactly the boxing and unboxing? The boxing is the process of converting the value type to reference type, and in unboxing it is completely reverse process, like it converting reference type to value type. So what is the garbage collector? The garbage collection is the process or mechanism that allows the computer to detect when an object is no longer used or no longer accessed. So it then automatically releases the memory to that object. So how many types of generations are there in the garbage collector? So we have three generations, like generation 0, generation 1 and generation 2. So we can say generation 0 when the object is initialized and it is to be a generation 0, and when objects that are under garbage collection process, then we can say the generation 1. And whenever a new objects are created and when there is no memory in that location, then it try to move those objects to generation 1, and from generation 0 to 1 and 1 to 2. So maintaining these generation will enhance the performance of the applications. We'll see some questions related to assembly. So what is an assembly? An assembly is the primary building block of .NET Framework application. It is a collection of functionality that is built, versioned, and deployed as a single implementation unit. And, and assemblies are self-describing by means of their manifest, which is an integral part of every assembly. So what are the components in assembly? Assembly is logical unit, as we discussed earlier. It has manifest, metadata, MSIL code, and resources. So what is a manifest? The manifest contains assembly identity, version, culture, and digital signature. And this information is used at runtime to resolve the references, enforce a version binding policy, and validate the integrity of loaded assembly. So what is the metadata? The metadata describes the contents in assembly. It includes the description of an assembly and a module, classes, interfaces, methods, properties, fields, events, global methods, and so on. So what is the ILDASM, like Intermediate Language Disassembler? This is a tool provided in C# and it available in the .NET like Visual Studio. It mainly used to view or read the assembly content in a manifest view. So what is the difference between the private assembly and shared assembly? The private assembly is used only by single application, and a shared assembly is like it is used by multiple applications. So what is a satellite assembly? The satellite assemblies are assemblies that are used to deploy language and culture specific resources for an application. In an application, a separate product ID is assigned to each language, and a satellite assembly is installed in a language specific subdirectory. So is versioning applicable to the private assembly? Really, we don't need. Like versioning is not applicable to private assemblies, as these assemblies resides in the same project directories. So what is the difference between the namespace and assembly? The namespace is a logical container which holds all the types. So the concept of namespace is not related to that assembly. The assembly may contain the types which are hierarchical names, have different namespace roots, and the logical namespace root may span multiple assemblies. But in .NET Framework, a namespace is a logical design time naming convention, like convenience, whereas an assembly establishes the name scope for types at runtime. What is a global assembly cache? GAC. GAC is used to store the shared assemblies, so which are common for several applications on the computer. So assemblies deployed in the GAC must have a strong name. So there is a tool gac_utility.exe which is used to add the shared assembly to gac folder. Sorry. So what is the strong name? A strong name is a .NET assembly name combined with its version number and other information to uniquely identifying the assembly. So this allows the multiple versions of the same assembly to peacefully coexist in the global assembly cache where the shared assemblies are typically stored. So it consists of 5 parts: the simple name, public key, version, culture, and processor architecture information. So what are the main steps which we follow to create a strong name, and after creating the strong name, how can we add this shared assembly into GAC? So there are steps like we need to open the .NET command prompt and we need to type sn-k, that is a strong name creation file. Then we have to provide the strong name file name. And then after creating the strong name, we need to update in the assembly information, assembly info.cs file. Then we need to build by using the GAC utility tool. We can add this assembly into GAC folder. So what exactly the app domain? The application domain is a virtual process that serves to isolate an application. So all objects created within the same application are created within the same application domain. Multiple application domains can exist in a single operating system process, making them a lightweight means of the application is isolation. What is the difference between the app domain and the OS process? An OS process provides isolation by having the distinct memory address space. While this is ineffective, it is also expensive sorry, and does not scale to the numbers required for the large web servers. But in case of app domain, the CLR on other hand enforce the application isolation by meaning managing the memory use of code running within the application domain. This ensures it does not access memory outside the boundaries of the domain. What is a DLL hell? DLL hell is the problem that occurs when installation of newer application might break the existing applications, as newer DLLs are copied into the system and the older application does not support the are not compatibility with them. So to overcome this problem, and .NET provides the multiple versions of assembly at any given time. So this is also called side-by-side component versioning. And thank you very much for listening this video. If you really like this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you would get latest updates automatically. Yeah, thank you very much.